A lot has happened since the last time we went through and did a Dynasty startup. I mean, you no longer have DeAndre Hopkins with the Cardinals. Now, we no longer have Dalvin Cook with the Minnesota Vikings. So I want to go through and I want to get y'all an updated 2023 Dynasty Fantasy Football startup. Now, of course, before we get into this, if you want to get access to all of my Dynasty rankings, if you want to join startup drafts with us in the future, if you want to get all of the premium content of all your favorite Dynasty experts, you can find it all on flockfantasy.com. When you sign up for flockfantasy.com with promo code FLOCK, you are going to get 30% off any subscription, and yours truly will go through and break down your Dynasty Fantasy Football team with the podcast. So thank you so much for being a member of the Flock, and let's go ahead and let's get this draft started. Now, we're going to be picking at 10. The reason being is we had people asking if we can go through and pick at the end of the draft because everybody picks in the middle rounds. And generally, I mean, if you're sitting there with pick 5, if you're sitting there with pick 4, if you're sitting there with pick 6, yes, it's going to be very easy, right? I mean, okay, we're going to take an elite level quarterback round 1, then we're just going to take value through the rest of the draft. Where if you're at pick 10, obviously it's going to be much more difficult than that. And I can't draft Joe Burrow here. I can't draft Jalen Hurts. I'm not going to be able to grab Herbert. I'm not going to be able to grab Trevor Lawrence. So we will have to mix things up. We'll have to try our hardest to manage to find some kind of value. And Chase, Jefferson, Lawrence all go right before us. So let's see what happens. Lamar goes, okay, thank God. We actually get Bijan Robinson. I understand a lot of people would rather have Justin Fields over Bijan Robinson. I am not one of those people. I mean, right now, Bijan Robinson in 2023 drafts is being drafted as the running back 2 off the board, and the man is literally a rookie. Like, what else can you be asking for? Super excited about the range of outcomes that we're looking at when it comes to Bijan. Now, Fields goes off the board at 12. I mean, I think that most people would probably take Justin Fields at 10 where we pass on him, but I mean, it is what it is, right? We'll be able to find some quarterback value a little later on. So you have Garrett Wilson going at the 201. We would have taken Garrett Wilson if he would have made it to us. Deshaun Watson goes. So now that Watson's off, we're going to make sure that we lock up an elite level quarterback. We will take Richardson here. Right now in 2023 Underdog drafts, you have Anthony Richardson going as the quarterback 10 off the board. And with him going as the quarterback 10, he's a rookie. Very similar to what we're talking about Bijan Robinson. If the expectations are he's the top 10 guy at his position in his rookie season, you can assume that this is a player that is a pretty solid bet in Dynasty. Now, keep in mind, the reason I was drafting Trey Lance in the second round, his rookie season and in year 2, is because we were sitting there going, okay, well, he has all the team investment where he's guaranteed to be a starter over the next few years. And when he does start, he'll have 1 million fantasy points because of his rushing upside. I don't know if he'll be any good. I don't know if he'll be any bad. I'm not an expert college quarterback scout. Same exact analysis here with Anthony Richardson. No idea if he's going to be any good or not. But, I mean, at the end of the day, if you have this much rushing upside, we're going to have to take you. And Connor asking if we're going to get in an Underdog draft today. Yes, sir. Right after this live stream, we'll be hopping in an Underdog draft on the main channel. And yeah, just in case y'all don't know, I mean, we've been drafting teams every single day on Underdog Fantasy. I've live streamed every single day since April and will not stop until the start of the season. I mean, y'all know Underdog, 99% of y'all are already on there. Best ball, no time commitment at all during the season. Drafted over 700 teams there a year ago. What, $150,000 on Underdog last season. We'll continue to draft a ton of teams on the live stream. You can sign up with promo code FLOCK and you'll get a 100% deposit match up to $100. And with promo code FLOCK, you can find the link in the description, comment section, live chat. You will also get our 2023 Dynasty Fantasy Football rankings and a free trial to flockfantasy.com. Love the value that you go with the Monroe St. Brown and Chris Olave here. Love the value. Alec deciding to go with the win now approach of Mahomes, Kelsey, Tyreek. Honestly, don't really like those picks considering the other guys that you have on the board right now. And quick side note for everybody that's on Underdog right now. I mean, go take advantage of this. Oh, I'm sorry. This is where Underdog is available in the first place. And also go take advantage of this. They have a free bet right now up for Jimmy Butler on Friday night. I'm no basketball expert. I don't talk about NBA player props because I'd embarrass myself with it. But hell, when it's half a point fewer or less, we're going to go ahead. We will talk about that. We will point that out for y'all there. Okay. So Adrian says more startup drafts. I'll get more startup drafts going for y'all. I mean, felt like it was a pretty big day to get one going, right? Obviously, because, I mean, we had some pretty big news over the past week with both DeAndre Hopkins as well as Dalvin Cook. Okay, so Cup goes off the board 308. This draft is really getting the redraft fever, right? Yeah, this draft has that redraft fever going. You see Eckler 3rd round, Cup 3rd round, Tyreek 3rd round. Honestly, I think that's probably a little early for all these guys, just considering the fact this is a dynasty league at the end of the day. And with this being a dynasty league at the end of the day, do we continue to do it? I think I do, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to continue to grab some rookies here. We're going to go ahead and take Jackson Smith-Njigba. So we have the running back 1 in this class. We have the quarterback 1 in this class. We have the wide receiver 1 in this class. Clearly, this is a 2024 team. Clearly, this is a team that's not ready to compete this next season. But hell, we'll make it work. We'll make it work. So keep in mind, if this was not a mock draft and we have this start where we're playing for 2024 and we're looking at the long haul, this is about the point of the draft where we'd be looking to possibly trade back and pick up additional 2024 first round picks and try to lock in the 101 next year and lock in Caleb Williams. So just understand, you really stay flexible in these drafts, take the value as it falls to you. And based off this draft so far, I most likely would be pivoting to that 2024 productive struggle, trying to get Caleb Williams. And if we were doing that, I'll go ahead. I will take Kyler Murray here, a quarterback that I think still has an elite ceiling from a fantasy football perspective if he were to be fully healthy. Now, of course, the issue is with Kyler Murray, it's a quarterback that's going to miss the beginning of this next season, which is why you're seeing him fall in this draft. I mean, with the torn ACL, I mean, his knee's destroyed. He will not play week 1 this next year, or at least we can assume he won't, which is why we're getting him here at the 403. But if we're playing for 2024, love it. I mean, honestly, if it wasn't for the ADP and me banking on the fact that we were probably going to get Kyler Murray on the way back around in the 4th, I would have gone ahead and I probably would have taken Kyler Murray round 3 and Jackson Smith-Njigba round 4. But just off this sleeper ADP, felt like we had a strong shot to get Kyler Murray on the way back around in the 4th round, which is exactly what happens. And I am very, very excited about it. But Snakehead Schultz says, thanks for that free $10 on Underdog, bro. No, thank you, my man, for being a member of the flock. And quick side note, of course, I know 99% of y'all are on Underdog, so make sure you are going and taking advantage of the free bet. If you use promo code FLOCK, that should be live in your app right now. It should be live in your app all the way to kickoff, even if you sign up to Underdog tomorrow. And also, I know a lot of y'all watching are not only members of Underdog, but also flockfantasy.com. Please go to your account page on flockfantasy.com. Put in your Underdog username there on your account page, and it will automatically add $10 in your Underdog account. Y'all know I've worked with Underdog for years. I worked my ass off to get everybody here this special thing. I don't get anything for you going and putting your Underdog username on your account page on flockfantasy.com. Of course, I do if you sign up for Underdog promo code FLOCK, but I just want to make sure everybody's going and taking advantage of that $10. So you can clearly see it on your account page on flockfantasy.com. But Mike coming out with a donation. Thank you so much, my friend. Says, hey, Mason, thanks for the Dynasty content. I'm in a 1 quarterback full PPR where we traded the 101, 103, 108. Okay, so hell, my man, we gave away a lot here for Jefferson, James Cook, and the 104. My team is stacked. Okay, so 1 quarterback format, 108 versus James Cook. Honestly, about neutral. I mean, super flex, definitely give me the 108 where I'm going to be able to get Quentin Johnston. 1 QB league, the player you're going to get at 8, kind of complete trash, throw him out the window. So if we're looking at the 101 and 103 versus Jefferson and the 104, that's like Bijan Robinson, Jackson Smith-Njigba versus Justin Jefferson and Quentin Johnston. I probably prefer Justin Jefferson and Quentin Johnston there, my friend. I think it's a decent trade. I don't necessarily think like we robbed the man by any means. Obviously, I'm very high on Bijan Robinson, but getting Justin Jefferson in a 1 quarterback format, he's literally the best asset in that kind of format. Johnston goes off the board here at the 506. Like I said, we are with the long-term approach here, so we're not going to be trying to grab too many veterans here. Now, of course, if a veteran is the value, we will go in that direction. That way we can go ahead and look to potentially trade someone during the season. But just want to make sure that we're not going to be missing anybody on this board. Okay. Addison goes 507. I definitely would have taken Addison if you would have made it back to us. And this is a big thing that I just want to point out when you are in your dynasty league, right? If you are stepping into a startup, in my mind, if you step into the startup with the premeditated decision, okay, I'm going to be a rebuilder, or I'm going to be a contender, I'm going to go productive struggle, or I'm going to win this year. And if you make that decision before the first pick is off the board in your dynasty draft, you are doing yourself a disservice. And Steph Rico here is doing us a disservice by taking the best player on the board in Jerry Jeudy, and now making us actually sit here and have to think about what we are doing. I don't want to say our entire thought process here simply because, I mean, at the end of the day, these people at 11 and 12 are probably watching this. I'm going to make what most people perceive to be a horrendous decision and draft Trey Lance. Now, of course, I'm an idiot, so I still think that this is a good decision, but proceed with caution, ladies and gentlemen. But going back to what we were saying previously, you want to step into these dynasty drafts with the thought process, I am going to be neutral and I am going to let the board fall to me. If everybody else goes and they decide to try to win now, if we see in a dynasty league, CMC go off the board in round 2, Jonathan Taylor go off in round 2, then Tyreek round 3, Barkley round 3, Eckler round 3, Kupp round 3, and you're seeing the vast majority of other people in your league decide to go and try to win now, that is when I'm going to be fine pivoting over, and that's when I'm going to be fine trying to go with the productive struggle. It's not necessarily something that you have to decide to do before your draft even starts. Generally, I want to be doing the exact opposite, because if everybody's trying to win immediately, if I were to go through and try to trade for 2024 picks, we can probably get them at a discount. Whereas if everybody is trying to play for 2024, it's going to be very hard to select young assets that will accrue in value going into next offseason. And at the same time, it will be very difficult to go through and trade for those picks at the same time. Okay. So what are we doing here? What are we doing? Oh, we have 9 freaking seconds left. Take Pickens just because I have no idea what to do. I'm not even a big Pickens guy. The main issue is if I was in a real dynasty league, I'm probably going to continue to slam quarterbacks here. But I know every single startup that we do, I'm like, oh, okay, we can get Geno Smith round 9. Let me go take Geno in round 9. People then roll their eyes because I'm sitting here with 5 QBs. And of course, if it was a real dynasty league, we're going to be able to go through and trade those guys for a decent amount of value. But instead of taking, in my mind, the best pick on the board, which would have been quarterback, we'll go wide receiver. Now, Michael Pittman is 100% a player that I think is a better option in dynasty than George Pickens. And I want to be on record saying that. If you're looking at my dynasty rankings on flockfantasy.com, I will have multiple players ahead of George Pickens here. Now, of course, this goes back to this being a mock draft and not a real league. Where it was a real league, I would be able to go through and instead I would be able to go and trade this pick and get future draft capital. But with this being a league where we decide to go productive struggle, we kind of just have to take the young asset. Even if Michael Pittman is a much better dynasty player, even if I have him higher in my dynasty rankings, Michael Pittman will turn 26 this season. And if Michael Pittman's turning 26 this season, I mean, not necessarily the guy we want on a productive struggle, where George Pickens will be 22 this season. So we'll take Pickens. Not excited about it at all. If this was a real draft that we started this way, and I'd almost say the same thing with that 5th round pick, we would be looking to trade, trying to pick up later picks in this startup draft and 2024 picks as well. Okay. Andrew says, I'm up next to my startup. Is the 206 too early for Chris Olave? Hell here. I mean, my man, you have Chris Olave going off the board at the 211. If it's going to be a super flex draft, I definitely would prefer grabbing like Richardson, Bryce Young. I would honestly be fine taking Olave over Breece Hall if you wanted, over Jonathan Taylor if you wanted. I'd be fine taking Olave over A.J. Brown, over Jalen Waddle if you are a big fan of Chris Olave. So, I mean, I'm completely fine with you going through and pulling the trigger in the second round if that's something that you wanted to do, my friend. Okay. Now we have Godwin going off the board, 701. Obviously, Godwin not a prime player for us, considering the build that we have right now. Not really looking to draft someone that was drafted in 2017. Okay. There are a few names that I like. Let's see if we get any of them making it back to us. So Javonte Williams finally off the board. Javonte Williams had the highest ADP here for a very long time now. Tobin says, same way I felt about my Dameon Pierce pick. Real draft, I would have traded out. I was honestly planning on taking Dameon Pierce if he would have fallen to us, even if you wanted to fit our team build. I think that you took the guy that had the best value there, to be honest. Okay, Rachaad White off. Generally, we're not looking to add in any running backs on a productive struggle team. Obviously, a rookie in Bijan Robinson's a little bit different, especially when we take Bijan Robinson there in the first, not necessarily knowing which direction that this team is going to go before we decide if we're going to be a productive struggle or before we decide if we're going to try to contend this next season. Okay. Now, Hopkins off 705. Alexander Madison, this is what I wanted to see. I wanted to see where Alexander Madison, Dalvin Cook would be going with the Dalvin Cook news. Seeing Madison go off the board 706, in my mind, I drafted a lot of Alexander Madison earlier this offseason on Underdog, but I still think this is probably pretty high. I mean, it's probably too high. Jamison Williams going 708. Jamison Williams would have been the perfect guy to add for this build, someone that could possibly see his value rise in 2024 while not providing us a lot of production this season. That way we could actually be in a spot where we get Caleb Williams next year. Okay, so if I was in a real dynasty league, to be honest with you, and I want to be on record, if I was in a real dynasty league, I'm taking a quarterback here with the expectation to trade them later on. But I do that in every single one of these drafts, which I am sure y'all are so tired of seeing by now. I know y'all are tired of seeing me take 4 to 5 quarterbacks, even if these QBs in my mind are extremely strong values. We'll go ahead. We'll take Pat Freiermuth. In my mind, one of the better buy low candidates you are going to find in Dynasty at this point. I understand Dalton Kincaid has a much higher ADP, but at the same time, I would say that if you were looking at what we had from Pat Freiermuth in year 1 and year 2, it's kind of hoping. That's what you're hoping you get from Kincaid. And Buddy Tid says traded Higgins and Madison for Jamar Chase. Oh my gosh, should be put in jail, my man. That's crazy. Okay, Pacheco, Kenny Pickett. Yeah, Jordan Love, Kenny Pickett. In my mind, those were kind of the best picks in this draft. I mean, I don't say the best picks in this draft, but the best picks in this range. Okay, so let's swing this around. Where are we going? Where are we going? Sorry, Underdog. Sleeper ADP is garbage. Like when we're used to Underdog ADP, it's a lot easier. We'll take Hollywood. Hollywood doesn't necessarily fit this team. We do have the stack with Kyler Murray. With Hollywood Brown, hopefully we could look to sell him high during the season if he was producing to a higher level than this. I think with the DeAndre Hopkins news and Hollywood being the wide receiver 1 there, locked in stone, pretty good value with Hollywood Brown. So we'll take the value here, but the expectation is if this is a true productive struggle team, we look to go ahead and sell Hollywood Brown a little closer to the season. Buddington said, and the 108 in a 1 quarterback format. 108 in a 1 QB league doesn't really matter, my man. Still a great trade, great trade. Okay. Now, Amari, Kirk, both off the board. I mean, Kirk drafted 2018. Amari Cooper drafted 2015. Hollywood Brown drafted 2019. So we are getting a little bit of a younger option in comparison to those other wide receivers that are going in the same range. Deontay Johnson drafted 2019 as well. Or maybe it was 2018. Pretty sure it was 2019, right? 4 years experience. I know for a damn fact Kirk was 2018. And so Deontay Johnson drafted in 2019, like we were saying. And I honestly have a little more faith in what you may get from Hollywood Brown than I do Deontay Johnson. Like Deontay Johnson, someone that I drafted a lot on Underdog last year. Primary issue was, I mean, he did get the volume which we were expecting, but at the same time, I mean, just completely tanked with efficiency. If you were looking at the efficiency marks that you had from Deontay Johnson, you could make an argument that he was the worst wide receiver in the NFL last year. From an efficiency standpoint, that is. Okay. DeAndre Swift goes off the board there at the 8-11. Swift, not necessarily someone that we're looking to draft, honestly, in too many builds, but especially not the current one we have. Cam Akers off 8-12. Same thing. I mean, with Akers, maybe if you were a contending team, sure, go ahead and pull the trigger here. It would be difficult for us to take Cam Akers. Like I said, with the productive struggle build, we're not really looking to take too many running backs in general. Okay, this is where the board begins to get gross. I want to say hopefully some running backs go, but at the same time, I mean, I don't know how much it matters because if I'm looking at wide receiver, if I'm looking at tight end, if I'm looking at QB, there's not anybody that really stands out that I'm like, oh yeah, please fall to us. So in reality, I don't think it matters too much what happens over the next few picks for us at the end of round 9 here. Okay. Njoku goes here in round 9. So I actually do take a decent amount of tight end in this range. I like the Dalvin Cook selection if you are a contending team. Just saying maybe Dalvin goes to Miami. Maybe Dalvin goes to KC. Maybe Dalvin goes to Dallas. Maybe Dalvin goes to Buffalo. You don't really know. Okay, Bateman 907. Elijah Moore 906. But yeah, with David Njoku, I actually really like the tight ends in this range in comparison to the other positions, that is. Like, we can't take Darren Waller, of course, I mean, with our build, but. Okay, Laporta goes. Okay, I definitely want to take Sam Laporta. I mean, in general, not a fan of Sam Laporta, and in general, not a fan of taking rookie tight ends. Did we take a swing on Rashee Rice? Going back to what we were talking about, like the George Pickens pick, it's gross, right? Like there are definitely other players on the board that I think are better, but if we're just trying to find someone that maybe fits our build here, that's going to be the way that we're going. Now, of course, if you pull up my Dynasty rankings on flogfantasy.com, we will have someone like Aaron Jones ahead of Rashee Rice, but at the end of the day, we are going to go through. We're going to try to continue to fit this build. If this was not a mock draft, and instead if this was a real Dynasty startup, I am doing anything that I can to try to trade out of this pick and pick up additional 2024 capital. Rice should not go in this range. We should trade out of the pick. Someone should move up to grab Aaron Jones. But it is what it is. It is what it is. We may just continue to swing on rookies. You know what? We'll take Kadarius Toney, essentially lock in both Kansas City Chiefs wide receivers and see if we can get someone to actually make an impact there in KC. So if you're looking at where Kadarius Toney currently goes in underdog drafts, Kadarius Toney is a pick that goes like right next to Mike Evans for 2023. And in my mind, I think in those underdog drafts, even with it being best ball, Kadarius Toney is truly a disastrous pick. I think it is a nasty, nasty way to go. But instead, if you were looking at this sleeper draft, I mean, let's compare where these guys are going. So Toney is the wide receiver 38 on Underdog next to Mike Evans. I mean, hell, he's going ahead of Dallas Goedert. With Kadarius Toney, you would think that his redraft ADP shouldn't be much higher than it is in Dynasty. I mean, the man is going into year 3. He's only 24 years old. And if we're looking at where he falls in this draft, I mean, you are drafting him more so as a wide receiver 5 if we're looking at the rest of this board in comparison to where he goes there. So even though I do stand by my statement that I think Kadarius Toney, if you're looking at redraft leagues, if you're looking at best ball leagues, if you're looking at where he's going, those underdog drafts, you can make a strong argument he's the worst pick in fantasy. I think here, maybe it makes some sense to just go ahead and grab him at the 10:03. Okay. Now, Kamara goes. Mike Williams off the board. So those are guys that we just simply can't take. Evan Ingram goes 10:09. Interesting to see Levis and Mac Jones go ahead of some of these other quarterbacks you have. I'm not saying right or wrong, but you still have Desmond Ridder. You still have Sam Howell. You still have Matthew Stafford, Jimmy Garoppolo, Baker Mayfield all on the board. Like I said, not saying it's right or wrong. In reality, trust me, I'd rather have Will Levis over Baker Mayfield, but just definitely wanted to point that out. Some of these running backs look like decent values, but like I said, just generally with our build, we're not looking to take RB. Evans goes. Okay, I think we're going to be able to find some decent, productive struggle pieces down here at the end of the 11th, beginning of the 12th. Keep in mind, big thing that we are wanting to do with this team is once we go so young out the gate, we are deciding that we are not looking to compete this next season. I want to make sure that we are putting ourselves in a position to have a ton of long-term upside with this team. Try to fill the roster with players that have the possibility of continuing to accrue dynasty fantasy football value going into next offseason, while at the same time not scoring a ton of points this season, which will allow us to get the 101 and hopefully bring in Caleb Williams next year. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and we are going to go in this direction. Let's move this down. Dalton Schultz off the board. Sam Howell goes 11:04. Lockett goes 11:05. A.J. Dillon. Phenomenal A.J. Dillon value. Like, I was honestly even maybe considering taking A.J. Dillon here at the end of the 11th, even though he doesn't fit our build in particular, just for the trade value that you'd get from him. Gibson goes 11:07. James Conner 11:08. There are a bunch of other guys we can look at. Downs goes. So honestly, we're going to take Brian Robinson. Like I said, not looking to add running backs on a productive struggle build, but in general, if you're looking at Brian Robinson going into year 2, this is a running back that from this price point, I do believe that we would be more likely to be able to see a spike in his production this next season to get us a 2024 first, more so than any other player here. Like Jaden Reed, definitely a possibility on the way back around, but if we were trying to find a running back that could go out, have a hot start, and possibly be like top 12 at his position, and then we could immediately flip for a future first, I think Brian Robinson could possibly be just that. Right now, he's being drafted ahead of Antonio Gibson in 2023 drafts. However, we are actually getting him behind Antonio Gibson in this Dynasty draft, with it, which is interesting. And we'll go ahead and we'll take Greg Dulcich as our tight end 2 here. Another player that showed flashes his rookie season. Of course, he doesn't necessarily look like an elite level asset. But I mean, if he does continue to improve, then all of a sudden you could be in a position where I think also he is another player that could eventually, and it's not a guarantee, but possibly be flipped for a 2024 first. So yeah, let's go ahead and let's take Greg Dulcich there. Now, Juju, Roshan Johnson go off the board. Interesting to see Roshan go ahead of Khalil Herbert. I am honestly really surprised at the hesitation that both the redraft and dynasty community have had against Herbert. I'm not saying it's right or wrong at all. Like, to be honest with you, I mean, I was expecting to be lower on Khalil Herbert than most people this next season. I was expecting to sit here and go, oh, you know, it's really up in the air. You could see it being anybody here in this backfield. But it seems like most people are saying that same thing. Like, you have Roshan Johnson going instead. Super interesting. Okay, Khalil Herbert does eventually go off the board here at the end of the 12th. I'm completely fine drafting him there. Completely fine. Okay. G-Bus says, I won my first ever prop on Underdog the other day. Turned the $10 from linking my Underdog account into 50 from the 10x multiple. Congrats, my friend. And you know I'm not talking player props, especially not NBA player props very often. But my man, that is pretty much the only time you'll ever hear me talking about an NBA player prop is whenever they're pushing out these free ones for the playoffs. Usually they don't do a lot of them during the season. They've done a ton of those for the playoffs, though. Okay, now Thomas going off the board, 1303. Stafford, love the value in the 13th. If Stafford would have made it back, we would have gone ahead and taken him. And if it was a real draft, they probably would have taken Stafford a little earlier with the expectation that we could trade him. But like I said, people get tired of us just taking quarterback, and going, oh, yeah, round 12, Matthew Stafford. Let's take him and hopefully flip him in a second for a future first during the season. But you can only hear me say that so many times before you were just bored out of your mind. Now, quarterback, Hendon Hooker, Baker Mayfield, Ryan Tannehill, the best options. Running back, you had Tyler Algier, Tajay Spears, Jamal Williams, Rashad Penny. Wide receiver, you have Darnell Mooney, Jacoby Myers, Rondell Moore, Odell Beckham Jr. Tight end, we have Luke Schoonmaker, Luke Musgrave, Trey McBride, Dawson Knox. So honestly, we'll go ahead. We'll take Tyler Algier. I mean, we have we have Bijan Robinson. That doesn't necessarily mean we're any more likely or any less likely to take Tyler Algier here. But at the end of the day, I mean, I just think that in general, he's pretty strong value. And if you were to see an injury to Bijan Robinson, we could also look to flip him for future capital. I don't necessarily know our ability to just trade Jacoby Myers. I mean, a super depth wide receiver during the season for any future picks. So at the last few spots here, I'm always going to be trying to pick up some running backs that if an injury were to occur in front of them, maybe we could squeeze a little bit of value out. Baker goes 1401. We are going to end this draft with a Baker Mayfield pick. Cedric Tillman off the board. We may do something a little wild here. Let's do it for the sake of having news, right? Very rarely is something happening on a June 8th that is going to change things in fantasy football. Let's go ahead and let's take Dwayne McBride here, 1403. Maybe, just maybe, the Minnesota Vikings don't go through and add in another running back. In reality, they're most likely going to add in another RB. I think that we can almost safely say that. I think that you will see either Hunt, Leonard Fournette. You'll have someone going over to the Minnesota Vikings to be the RB2 there, to Alexander Madison as the RB1. But for the sake of getting excited about some of the new news that we have, we will go ahead and we will take Dwayne McBride there with our last selection at the 1403. But again, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for hanging out with us in this live stream. Couple things. One, we are streaming those Underdog drafts literally every single day on the Flock Fantasy YouTube channel. So, of course, if you're wanting to get into a draft with us, we're doing it every single day until the season starts there. Find the link in the live chat. Find it in the description. Find it in the comment section. Promo code FLOCK, 100% deposit match. Free trial to flockfantasy.com, as well as our 2023 Dynasty Fantasy Football rankings. Go take advantage of this because I know 99% of y'all already have the app. It is live now if you use promo code FLOCK. And last but not least, I will get you the link to the live stream that we are going to have in just 1 second, where I'm going to go live again in 10 minutes with an Underdog draft. And honestly, probably going to be doing a couple of them if y'all wanted to go ahead and get in with us. So let me grab y'all that link. I'll send it in the live chat right now, just in case you want to hang out with us there. And yeah, we'll be live there for like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Those streams have been wild as of late, but we are going to be sending that link. And I'm assuming that most people already know that we have the other channel that is just the Flock Fantasy, our main YouTube channel. But we just sent that link out in the live chat. Again, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Really do appreciate you. Really hope you have a great day. Really hope that I get to see you in the live stream in about 10 minutes. If not, love you and see you next time.